Have you ever watched Speed and thought, okay, but how on earth did this bus survive all that? I mean, we're talking about a regular Los Angeles city bus that somehow outran traffic jams, freeway gaps, exploding planes, villain masterminds, and the laws of physics, all while being driven by a passenger who didn't even plan on taking the bus that day. Annie's 1994 Runaway bus wasn't just a vehicle, it was a full-blown action icon, a rolling pressure cooker strapped with enough explosives to turn it into confetti the second it dipped below 50 miles per hour. But here's the thing, the story behind that bus is just as wild as what you saw on screen. Behind the scenes, things were breaking that weren't supposed to break, actors were doing stunts they definitely weren't supposed to do, and the script went through so many changes that the bus itself probably needed a map to keep up. So buckle up, grab something to hold on to, and keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times, because we're about to take a high-speed deep dive into the chaos, creativity, accidents, miracles, and pure cinematic insanity that made Speed the Runaway classic it is today. So hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's dive straight into the chaos behind Annie's Runaway bus. Here are 22 weird facts about 1994, Annie's Runaway bus, and after this, you'll never look at that bus the same way again. Number 22. The bus was never supposed to be a runaway bus. Here's something you'd never guess. Speed didn't even start out as a story about a bus. In fact, the entire runaway bus concept was a late-game mutation. The movie's writer, Graham Yost, originally heard about the film Runaway Train from his dad, who incorrectly told him the train couldn't stop because there was a bomb on board. When Yost eventually watched the movie, he realized there was no bomb at all, but the idea stuck. He thought, okay, but what if there was a bomb? And what if it wasn't on a train? The first drafts bounced between different vehicles before settling on a city bus. Why a bus? Because it was claustrophobic, familiar, and chaotic. The perfect rolling disaster. And the whole drop below 50 miles per hour and boom rule? That came later after someone told Yost 20 miles per hour sounded way too easy. So yeah, Speed started as a misunderstanding about a totally different movie, and somehow it turned into one of the most iconic action premises ever filmed. Number 21. The minimum speed limit was originally 20 miles per hour, not 50. Believe it or not, the whole stay above 50 miles per hour or this bus goes boom rule wasn't always the plan. In the earliest version of the script, the bus only had to stay above 20 miles per hour. That's right, basically the speed of a lazy jog. Screenwriter Graham Yost later admitted that 20 miles per hour sounded dramatic in his head, until someone pointed out that a bus going 20 miles per hour isn't exactly edge-of-your-seat cinema. At that speed, Annie could have kept the bomb from detonating while stuck behind a slow-moving garbage truck. A friend of Yost's finally said, "Dude, make it 50," and suddenly the movie snapped into place. At 50 miles per hour, the bus couldn't slow down for traffic, tight turns, construction zones, or panicked passengers, instantly raising the stakes from mildly inconvenient to full-blown adrenaline meltdown. That simple tweak transformed Speed from a neat idea into the white-knuckle thrill ride we know today. Number 20. The opening elevator sequence was added so the studio would approve. Here's a twist you probably didn't see coming. Speed almost didn't get made because it spent too much time on the bus. When the script first landed at 20th Century Fox, the execs loved the runaway bus premise, but hated the idea of the entire movie taking place inside it. They worried audiences would get bored before the wheels even started spinning. So, they told director John DeBont and writer Graham Yost, add more action, stuff that's not on the bus. DeBont instantly remembered a terrifying real-life incident, getting stuck in a malfunctioning elevator while working on Die Hard. That nightmare became the movie's adrenaline-pumping opening set piece, and honestly, it changed everything. The elevator sequence doesn't just start the movie with a bang, it establishes Jack Traven as clever, capable, and already in a cat-and-mouse battle with Howard Payne. It resets the pacing so that when the bus finally shows up, the tension is already sky-high. Number 19. The famous pop quiz hotshot line almost didn't happen. Hard to imagine Speed without Dennis Hopper snarling, "Pop quiz? Hotshot?" Right? But here's the wild part. That line wasn't even in the original script. In fact, most of the dialogue you remember wasn't. When production hit a rough patch, the studio brought in Joss Whedon to rewrite and polish the script. Whedon didn't just tweak a few lines, he rewrote 98.9% of the dialogue, reshaping the entire tone of the movie. Originally, Jack Traven was written as a cocky, wisecracking action hero, more in the vein of a John McClane clone. Whedon and Keanu Reeves worked together to steer Jack in a totally different direction, calmer, more thoughtful, earnest, and determined not to let anyone get hurt. That shift made Jack instantly more likable, and it made Hopper's taunting villain lines hit even harder.
Find you. Pop quiz, hotshot.
Came out of those rewrites, and it instantly became one of the most iconic trash talk moments of the 90s. Number 18. The role of Annie was almost a paramedic, not a bus passenger driver. It's hard to imagine anyone but Sandra Bullock white-knuckling that steering wheel, but Annie almost looked completely different and had a totally different job. In the earliest drafts, Annie wasn't a civilian passenger forced into hero mode. She was written as a paramedic, which conveniently explained why she could handle a huge city bus under extreme pressure. Because of that version, Halle Berry was originally offered the role and turned it down. When the character shifted from trained professional to everyday woman caught in chaos, the casting search opened up. At one point, Annie was even reimagined as a driver's ed teacher meant to play more comedic sidekick than action lead. Ellen DeGeneres was briefly considered, seriously. But the moment Sandra Bullock auditioned with Keanu Reeves, everything clicked. Their chemistry was so natural that producers immediately shifted Annie into the sharp, funny, brave, regular person we ended up cheering for. And thank goodness, a paramedic Annie just doesn't hit the same. Number 17. Sandra Bullock actually got a real bus driver's license for the role. If you ever doubted Sandra Bullock's commitment to Annie Porter, here's a fact that'll make you appreciate her even more. She actually learned how to drive a real city bus for the film. No joke. Before filming started, the production team sent Bullock to legitimate bus driving training, where she learned how to steer, brake, corner, and handle a 12-ton vehicle like she'd been doing it for years. She didn't just dabble in it either. She passed the test on her very first try, earning an actual bus driver's license. That meant when you see Annie barreling down the freeway, swerving around traffic, or screaming at Jack while trying to keep the bus steady. That's really Sandra behind the wheel. Of course, for safety reasons, some scenes still used hidden stunt drivers. One even drove from the roof or a second row, but Bullock's real training gave the movie a grounded, authentic feel. Annie wasn't just acting like she could drive that bus. She could. Number 16. Multiple actual buses were used and destroyed. You might think Speed used one heroic bus that survived the whole movie. Nope. Just like the A-Team needed a fleet of vans, Speed relied on a small army of buses to pull off its wild stunts. In total, production used 11 GM New Look buses, plus 3 backup Grumman 870s, each customized for specific scenes. One bus was rigged for interior shots with removable walls, another was built for high-speed driving, one was set up for the famous undercarriage scene, and a couple, they were basically sacrificial lambs. 2 buses were blown up during filming, several were damaged beyond repair after stunt attempts, and the jump bus had its suspension and tires absolutely shredded after going airborne for more than 100 feet. The crew even kept one stripped-down bus as a lightweight stunt jumper. By the end of production, the buses had taken as much punishment as the characters. Number 15. The iconic freeway gap jump was a last-minute idea. One of the wildest moments in Speed. The bus launching over a missing chunk of freeway like it suddenly decided to audition for The Fast and the Furious wasn't planned at all. In fact, the scene only exists because director John DeBont happened to be scouting locations when he noticed a massive unfinished section of the 105 freeway. Most directors would have sighed, complained about construction, and moved on. Not DeBont. He looked at the gap and said, "What if the bus jumps it?" That impulsive idea instantly became one of the most memorable stunts in 90s action movies. The studio thought he was joking, the stunt team thought he was insane, and physics packed its bags and left the building. But the jump stayed, and it fundamentally changed the movie's rhythm, giving audiences a moment so impossibly ridiculous yet thrilling that it became the film's unofficial calling card. All because DeBont saw a gap and thought, yeah, we can jump that. Number 14. The stunt bus jump went over 100 feet in the air and into a row of cameras. If you thought the freeway jump looked wild on screen, the real stunt was even crazier. For the big moment, the team built a hidden ramp to launch the bus just high enough to clear the imaginary gap. In theory, it was supposed to rise gracefully, land smoothly, and look believable. In theory. In reality, the first attempt went so wrong the bus didn't even hit the ramp correctly. It slammed down, broke itself, and had to be scrapped. The studio never found out. On the second attempt, the bus finally soared. But soared way farther than anyone expected. Instead of landing neatly, it obliterated an entire row of cameras, smashing thousands of dollars of equipment. Luckily, a backup camera placed far off to the side captured the perfect shot you see in the movie. Number 13. There's a visible cable on the tarmac in the final plane crash scene. For a movie all about speed, explosions, and white-knuckle tension, Speed actually has a tiny blooper sitting right in plain sight. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. During the finale, when the empty bus barrels into the cargo plane and erupts into a glorious fireball, there's a moment on the runway where you can spot a thick cable dragging across the tarmac. That cable wasn't supposed to be part of the action. It was simply the rig used to pull and guide the unmanned bus down the runway at the correct speed. The production team assumed the flames and chaos would distract viewers. And honestly, it worked. For years, most fans never noticed a thing. Number 12. The villain's entire motivation came from a cheap gold watch. Howard Payne might be one of the most unhinged villains of the 90s, but his entire murderous rampage comes from a bad retirement gift. Seriously. In the film, we learn that Payne was once part of the Atlanta Police Department's bomb squad, but was forced into early retirement after losing a thumb on the job. His reward for years of dangerous service? A flimsy, disappointing gold watch, the kind you'd win out of a claw machine if you were lucky. That tiny detail shaped Dennis Hopper's whole performance. Payne wasn't just evil for fun. He was bitter, furious, and sick of being undervalued. Even the bomb designs in the film reflect that resentment, meticulous, theatrical, and meant to humiliate the LAPD as much as kill. Number 11. The bus jump was so impossible that Mythbusters had to test it. Fans argued for years about whether the bus in Speed could actually make that insane leap across a missing stretch of freeway. The stunt looked so outrageous and so suspiciously gravity-defying that eventually the team behind Mythbusters stepped in to settle the debate once and for all. They recreated the setup, adjusted for weight, speed, angle, and even added a hidden ramp just like the film used. And the verdict, completely impossible. According to the data, even with perfect conditions, the bus would nosedive straight into the gap like a 12-ton lawn dart. The only reason the on-screen jump works is because the real stunt used a carefully engineered ramp and a stripped-down, ultra-light stunt bus. Number 10. The film was only green-lit after adding action scenes not on the bus. Here's a twist worthy of a plot point. Speed almost didn't get made because the studio felt it had too much bus. When Graham Yost first pitched the script, the entire movie took place on that one runaway vehicle. 20th Century Fox liked the concept, but executives were convinced audiences wouldn't sit through 90 minutes of nonstop bus interiors, no matter how many explosives were strapped underneath. Their demand? Add big action sequences that happened somewhere else. That note completely reshaped the movie. Director Jan de Bont responded by pitching the elevator rescue, inspired by his own real-life elevator scare, and later, a subway finale to bookend the film with large-scale set pieces. These additions didn't just satisfy the studio, they gave the movie its perfect pacing rhythm. Number 9. Harry was originally supposed to be the villain. Here's a plot twist that would have changed Speed completely. Jack's loyal partner, Harry Temple, yes, the same Harry played by Jeff Daniels, was originally written as the real villain. Early drafts had Harry secretly masterminding the bombs, setting up Jack and revealing himself in a shocking third-act betrayal. Graham Yost thought the twist was clever, until the team realized absolutely no one would buy it. Harry was too genuine, too grounded, too emotionally tied to Jack. The turn felt forced. Then came Dennis Hopper. Once he signed on to play Howard Payne, the entire script shifted. Hopper brought so much intensity and gleeful menace to the role that the film didn't need a surprise double cross anymore. Number 8. The movie was almost called Minimum Speed. It's hard to imagine Speed being called anything else. The title is so clean, so punchy, so instantly adrenaline charged. But in the early stages, Graham Yost had a very different name in mind: Minimum Speed. Yes, the movie about a runaway bus almost sounded like a driver's ed safety video. The title came from the original concept that the bus would explode if it dropped below 20 miles per hour, not 50. At the time, Minimum Speed made sense. It described the rule, the danger, the tension. Number 7. The bus route 33 downtown was based on a real LA transit line. In a movie packed with explosions, impossible stunts, and villains with grudge-fueled engineering degrees, it's easy to forget that the bus itself actually had real-life roots. The now iconic 33 downtown route wasn't plucked from thin air. It was modeled after a genuine Los Angeles line from the Big Blue bus system serving Santa Monica. The filmmakers wanted the bus to feel authentic, like something you might actually step onto during your morning commute. Minus the bomb, of course. Location scouts studied actual stops, traffic flow, and LA's chaotic street layout to make the bus's path believable. Well, believable enough. They even designed the bus's signage, logos, and route numbers to mimic real transit branding so closely that some locals thought the production vehicles were the real deal. Number 6. Actors on the bus earned bonus stunt pay because they actually had to do stunts. Here's something you probably never noticed while watching all the chaos on board. Many of the passengers on Annie's Runaway bus weren't just sitting there screaming, they were technically doing stunts, which meant they had to be paid as stunt performers. During one sequence, the actors had to climb from the speeding bus onto a rescue vehicle, and according to actress Paula Montes, that absolutely counted as stunt work. She insisted the cast get proper stunt pay for doing it themselves, and she was right. Some scenes even required the actors to brace, stumble, or react to sudden jolts while the bus took sharp turns or hit obstacles. A few had to rehearse falls, crouches, and movement timing, so no one got hurt during the high-speed scramble. The director wanted the bus scenes to feel chaotic and authentic. Number 5. Some passengers on the bus were real locals, adding unexpected realism. While Speed had its share of trained actors, a handful of the bus passengers were actually real Los Angeles locals hired to bring an authentic, everyday feel to the chaos inside the bus. Director Jan de Bont didn't want everyone to look like polished Hollywood extras. He wanted the bus to feel like a true cross-section of LA. Tourists, office workers, retirees, commuters, all thrown together in one impossible situation. One local woman even became unexpectedly famous for her moment. She was the passenger who panics, tries to exit, and tragically falls under the wheels when Payne detonates the step bomb. Her reaction wasn't just acting, she had expressed genuine nerves about the stunt, which gave her performance a raw, real edge the director loved. Number 4. The glass-shattering bus door scene was a complete accident. One of the most memorable moments early in the movie is when Jack smashes through the bus door window to get inside. It looks bold, precise, and totally intentional. The kind of confident action move you'd expect from a seasoned LAPD officer. But behind the scenes, that moment wasn't planned at all. During filming, Keanu Reeves went to pull the door handle the way the script instructed, except the mechanism jammed. Instead of ruining the take, Reeves instinctively shoved harder, and bam! The glass shattered like a stunt choreographed for maximum effect. The whole crew froze, waiting to see if anyone was hurt. Number 3, one of the actual speed buses later sold for over $100,000. You'd think a battle-scarred city bus with blown-out suspension, fried tires, and a history of near-death experiences wouldn't be worth much. But when it comes to movie memorabilia, the rules of the real world jump straight out the window, especially if the item survived speed. In 2018, one of the genuine GM New Look buses used during filming went up for auction, and fans didn't just nibble, they swarmed. The bus sold for an astonishing $102,000, a price tag that would make even Howard Payne raise an eyebrow. Collectors love the fact that this wasn't a replica or a promotional prop. It was a real screen-used workhorse that appeared in multiple scenes. Scratches, dents, stunt damage, and all. It was basically a four-wheeled piece of Hollywood history. Number 2. Despite all the chaos on the bus, the film begins and ends off the bus. For a movie that's remembered almost entirely for its high-speed bus mayhem, it's pretty funny that Speed actually opens and closes with major action sequences that have nothing to do with the bus at all. The film begins with the tense elevator bomb rescue, a sequence so intense it could have been its own short film. That wasn't just there for flair, it was added to satisfy the studio's demand for action outside the bus. Number 1. A simple bomb on a bus idea changed action movie history. It's almost impossible to believe now, but Speed started as a tiny, almost throwaway idea. A what-if scenario sparked by a misunderstanding about a completely different movie. Yet, that single spark turned into one of the most iconic action premises ever put on screen. A bus, a bomb, a speed limit, and a ticking clock. No skyscrapers, no special agents, no global stakes, just everyday people trapped in a nightmare that could happen on any morning commute. And there you have it. 22 weird, wild, totally unbelievable facts hiding beneath the roaring engine of Annie's Runaway bus. After learning all this, you'll never ride a city bus or watch Speed the same way again.